What's up, everybody? I'm Janie B, and welcome to the Janie B Perspective. This is another great episode. This is episode number 16, and we're talking about marriage part 2. Last time we got some great reviews on part 1, so we thought we'd bring back part 2. This time we're talking about if the marriage is not making it, if the long-term relationship is toxic or divorce is on the table. I want you to stick around because I have Carmel Ross joining me. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist of the Heaven Sent Consultation Group. So stick around. Remember to like, share, and to comment. Hey, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so thankful that you were able to join me again for topic marriage, the truth about marriage, number 2, part 2 today.
Yes, let's get back into it.
So I want to start with, what are signs that your marriage or your long-term relationship is not working?
Well, there can be lots of signs what could not be working, but one of the biggest things that people usually come into counseling for is broken trust. And as we talked about that, in the last segment, like that can branch off into, different things, but broken trust,
Right.
it can look into like infidelity, it can look into financial troubles, just not trusting or not feeling safe in their relationships. So it could be a very toxic relationship, a very abusive relationship, feeling alone in your marriage, sometimes people will use the kids to try to keep the marriage together, and we usually go more into that. And also too, like that there's no intimacy, in all aspects. That can definitely, do some damage to a relationship, to a marriage.
Right. Like I've been in a relationship that was toxic, and look, while I was in it, I didn't know it was that bad. Yeah. And it was like after I got out, and you start working on yourself, or you're just out of it. Even if you haven't really started working on yourself and you're just away from it and you have that distance, looking back, you're like, oh, wow, it was pretty bad. I know a big one, though, is people not wanting to be alone. And so that they will accept or allow or whatever is going on. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, like not wanting to be alone? And so you stay.
Well, one thing, that I do address with a lot of people is that they have this fear of being alone. And for some reason, they feel that being married will resolve all of that. And I've known some very lonely people in marriages.
Yes.
I'm sure and so understanding that you can definitely be alone in your marriage, versus having companionship. So a lot of people will look to like, oh, I want to be in this relationship or get married so I can, solve this fear of mine of being alone,
right.
And so realizing too, really defining that some people are very single and have full of life and feel like they're, that they're never alone, because there's a difference between being alone and lonely.
Yes.
So we definitely, those are the things that I really define with a lot of my clients about what does it mean to be alone versus lonely? Because you could be alone being single and happy.
Yes.
And you could be married and lonely.
Yes.
So really just unpacking those things, with them.
What is a sign that you're lonely? Because people do equate just being alone with lonely. And I know for a fact, when people used to say, because I'm single now, they would say like they were happy and you could be happy alone. I used to be like, they're lying. Because I could not fathom them, but that was my own projection. Because to me, being alone, I was like, no, you couldn't possibly come home every day and be happy and nobody was there to greet you. How do you know that you are lonely?
Or that the thing is, talking about being alone, it's like you can feel complete within yourself.
Okay.
That you don't need someone to define who you are or to complete you. You want to find somebody that can compliment you.
Okay, there we go.
And so being lonely is that urge of like, I'm needing, someone in my life to fulfill whatever this need is, versus I want someone in my life.
Right.
And so people like misconstrue those words of need versus wanting.
Yes.
To make them feel a certain way about themselves.
Right. Because sometimes we want to be needed. So, because we're substituting that like for our own self-worth or
Yeah.
value. Is that right?
Mhm.
Because I know like I was always like this fixer, not just even in romantic, like everybody around me, I wanted to help
Fix them.
everybody.
Yes.
And my whole life was falling apart, like really.
Mhm.
And so I know like now to have this feeling of rather wanting somebody instead of
Mhm.
me needing them to need me, it makes you have to have a whole like other level of confidence in yourself and like assuredness in yourself
Mhm.
that I'm enough.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is you have to feel enough before you get into marriage,
Mm-hmm.
because again, you want to be a whole complete person getting into a marriage where you want to marry somebody who's a whole complete person. Because the worst thing people could say is I married my better half. And it's like, well, if you got two half of people, that only
Yeah.
works in algebra. Two halves don't make a whole in a marriage. You would want two
Right.
whole people coming
That's true.
together in a marriage.
That's true because often you hear 50-50 or you two bring your
Mhm.
halves together. And it's like, no, bring your whole self there. Yeah. That
Exactly.
is good.
Because if we're 50-50, we both may be lacking in the other 50. Right.
Exactly. So I wonder, like, how important is it since we seem to sometimes operate without it?
Well, I look at like trust is one of the major pillars in having a healthy relationship, regardless of what kind of relationship it is.
Right.
It's one of the foundational stones that needs to
Mm-hmm.
have to happen
Okay.
in any type of relationship, because
Mm-hmm.
trust is about relying on someone else,
Mm.
and I equate trust as I need to feel safe in
Safe.
this relationship, not just only physically safe, but emotionally, mentally,
Mm-hmm.
psychologically safe in a
Yes.
relationship. I should be able to be vulnerable and
Yes.
open to you, and without having to always protect myself or be in a
Mm.
defensiveness all
Right.
the time. So when
Right.
that is broken, you
Mm-hmm.
can imagine like people just going inside themselves. It's like
Mm.
I no longer feel safe,
Yes.
and so now I have to do things and measures to really protect
Wow.
myself. So
Right.
that's why I say it's a very important element in any
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
Mm. Yeah, and then that can start digging in on like your physical health
Hmm.
and stress because that's a lot of like work, but in the direction that's not really working for your benefit. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because you're just trying to survive in a situation. Um,
And it's very hard to have your trust broken by someone that you love.
yes, that's a
you
different.
know
Hmm.
and when your trust is broken, there's this thing people say, well, just get over it. It's like, well, I can't. I have to
Yeah,
get back in that level of safety. And
right.
usually when trust is broken, it's usually not as it was before.
View the person differently. Like
Oh,
the
absolutely.
relationship is different. So you're
Hmm.
entering different dynamics where something used to be simple as, hey, I'm going to do this. You don't really believe that they're going to do it.
you
Mm-hmm.
know and so not only do I have to learn and build that trust for the other person, I have to trust myself to trust the situation.
Yes, right,
And
right.
so it's like if I've been hurt or if I've been repeatedly hurt over time, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my trust continues to get, stepped on, or it gets traumatized, or however
Right,
the trust was broken.
right. And you did mention safety, which is good. I know that sometimes some of us have not ever used to feeling safe. So
Hmm.
we just have this unsafe feeling inside, but we're used to it. So sometimes you hear people where they say, like, I don't trust anybody, like
Hmm.
they're super
Hmm.
independent and they're very much, I'll do it myself,
Yeah.
or I can't relinquish any type of trust. I can't let this wall down. And so sometimes I think we're used to living that way. And then
Hmm.
we get into a relationship and that's not there. That's just what we're used to.
Well, if we already are looking outward that the world is not safe, that the
Hmm.
relationships that were supposed to keep me safe have
Okay.
not kept me safe, then I
Right.
look at it through the lens of I'm never going to be safe. And so,
Right.
yes, we get into that relationship we still desire to feel safe, but we
Yes.
have those lenses and we have that mistrust of,
Right.
being in situations. It's like, am I safe? Can I trust this person?
Yes. So
Mm-hmm.
you said that like trust is a pillar in a relationship. Is there
Yes.
another pillar or foundation of a relationship that's super important that you can tell us that can bring?
Communication.
Okay, communication.
Communication, compromise, partnership, and
Mm,
also too, and I think I said this in the last segment, is I always ask people, what is the foundation of your relationship? Because it may look different for a
right.
lot of people. I've
Right.
heard like friendship, I've heard people's spiritual practices was important,
Mm,
you
right.
know, but I'm looking at also to the broader of like what brings people into counseling when their marriage is in trouble is
Right.
a lot of it is the breaking down of communication.
Okay. And then when you say in communication, like what is, I know before you said listening.
Yes,
How
listening is 50% of communicating.
right. And
Mhm,
and also, yeah, because it's a lot of our communication isn't what we're saying. It's like our
mhm.
body language, it's a lot of nonverbal.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
understanding and comprehension. And I noticed that we don't talk enough, I think. I think that we have like these one conversations and then we think we took care of the problem and it's still there, or it comes up again, or we don't want to bring it up because we don't want to look like we're nagging or that we're.
Well, one of my pet peeves I tell a lot of clients is stop having serious conversation over text message.
Mm,
Because just
mhm.
like you said, there is an element of communicating like body language that you
Yes.
don't get to see through a
Yes.
text message. So people are having serious conversations about the
Right.
status of their relationship through electronics. And it's
Right.
like you're missing that face to face, you're missing the connection, you're missing the intimacy because we
Mhm.
can read into something and
Yes.
all of a sudden, because I'm hurt or I'm angry, I can read it out of the lens of my own hurt and anger,
Yes.
and respond
Right.
versus communicating with that person, sitting down and really talking to them. Jenny, you'll be surprised how
Mhm.
many people will come
Mhm.
to counseling and that will be the only time that they will talk about their marriage.
I'm not surprised, but yes. I mean, I get it. That's true. Because looking
Mhm,
back, I cannot remember really talking about my marriage. I can remember us getting in arguments
mhm.
about things, but not really connecting on the real issues or how we felt.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
Well, I'm just saying because to me, it's like life just happens. People are
Yeah.
working, have children. And so to have that concentrated time,
Mm,
to really talk about, what's going on. I always say, it's okay. Not saying that you have to have it every single day but just having it enough where it's like, I still feel connected because that's where the disconnect can come. That's where
mm,
the miscommunication can come. That's where the distrust and all of these elements that can break down a marriage can come because you guys are not really talking about it. Like you said, we can, we can argue about it. And
yeah.
then next thing you know, it's like, well, I didn't know you felt that way. It's like, well, we
Mhm.
haven't talked in so
Right.
long about anything.
When we're disconnected, we're not talking, we're not in touch with one another. Is that what does disconnection mean? Is that pretty much it?
Well, disconnection is like when you got disconnected, from a phone,
Yes. Okay.
realizing a lot of things have been cut off.
Mm,
You're not connecting with your partner. You're just existing. I've heard that term some from couples. It's like we're living like roommates. That
yes.
intimacy is gone. That element or that thing that connected you when you guys got married is no
Yes.
longer, being resurrected, or it's not even there, the fire is gone, whatever it is to be
Mhm.
disconnected.
Right.
There is no in touch with each other,
Right.
and so that can leave the door open for many, many dangerous things to come. And I like the
Mm,
dangers of disconnection, and
mhm.
one of the things can be infidelity. It
Yes.
can be, I want to just go hang out and do me or whatever. And so,
Yes.
yeah, and it's like you guys are just like trains passing through the night now, not
Right.
feeling connected, not talking, not doing anything together. You're just existing in a house.
Yes, because disconnection is, connection is a form of intimacy.
Yes.
And when you've taken on a partner, that's part of why you take on a partner. A big part is for intimacy and that connection, one-on-one, that connection with someone. So if you're in a home with someone, like you said, you're just existing, you're just roommates, and you're not getting that from that person, and that's over time. That's why I said it's a dangerous space to be.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't think that disconnection just happens. I think it's all these, it could be, but I don't know. It could be all these, is it like a buildup of all these different things, like the trust factor, lack of communication, or all those things? Like, what are the elements?
It can be a lot of things. One of the things I tell clients is like, if two people are standing face to face when they get married, and then all of a sudden you just allow certain things in life to pull you apart like this, then all of a sudden it's like you guys are not, it's that slow, like you're not connecting. You're not talking like you used to. You're not doing the things that you used to do. You're not keeping the fire alive in your marriage like you used to. You're allowing external elements to come in to your marriage where it's like, oh, oh, you're still here, And so, and I think we talked about last time, like when children are in the, in the factor, it's like all of a sudden now my focus is on being a parent and not necessarily being the spouse, or it's like, oh, okay, well, you're in school and I'm working and I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping the house. So it's like so many things can happen, and then when I want to connect with my partner and my partner rejects me, come on, somebody, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm feeling, here go that word, lonely in my marriage. So guess what happens? Then I have to find other connections, right? If it's through other, it doesn't have to be infidelity, but I can find other connections that's not my partner.
Right. Because you stop relying on each other for that too, because you're like, well, I'm rejected, so I predict the outcome. I know that I'm going to be rejected, or I know that, we're not connecting. And like you said, so these voids now you have these voids, and you want to fill those voids. Like you say, it may not be infidelity. It could be, like you said, I'm just doing me. You might go to the casino a little too often.
And I will say this, there may have been communication to say, hey, I'm lonely, or hey, let's go do something. But eventually, if I hear so many no's, and this can happen over time. This can, this is not an overnight. Like you said, it's not an overnight. So after a while, it's like, okay, well, I guess, I don't know where we go next. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so I'm going to find connection somewhere.
There can be compatibility issues. Like, how important is compatibility?
It could be that. And also too, it's like, do you guys have shared interests? Do you have shared values? Do you guys have shared goals? Is there things that you guys want to move together towards, and being compatible is very important. But, throughout marriage, you may have different interests, but we have, compatibility in other ways too, And so looking at all the different ways of, especially if there's a difference between being in the beginning and dating in your, in your relationship versus being in the middle of it. Because to me, again, I always tell people, it's like, whatever you build your your foundation, your relationship will stand regardless of how rocky it gets. Now if you have a very rocky foundation, and you find that like you're not as compatible in your foundation, then over time it's going to be seen. And so those are the things that you have to, to really dig out and ask, like, how compatible, are you guys together in the very beginning? Because interest is going to grow, you're going to grow and age and, and things like that. But it's like, can we grow together? There may be moments that you grow apart, but again, it's about that foundational elements of your relationship.
Right. Because if your foundation started because you were using the relationship to solve a problem or fill a void, then right. So, or I just need a family because this is the next, check mark. and I think you are the best person because you're responsible or something, you know? And
Yeah. Or you
so
look good on paper,
you
or
look good. We're a power couple. We look good on
yes.
paper. Everybody thinks that we are the it couple.
Mhm.
And we kind of come across like that. And first, that probably could be very, you know, I don't know, stimulating. And then at some point, right, because that foundation wasn't right. And then life brings life problems and marriage doesn't solve them. You are smack dab in the face of all of this, of what could be toxic or what could be the danger zone and all
Yeah.
that. These are the couples that I'm talking to. That's
Well,
not funny.
you're realizing, because a lot of people, can look good, smell good, and feel good. And then all of a sudden you start noticing, I didn't realize that our values are different in regards to money, or our values are, different in regards to fidelity,
Yes. Yes.
that our values are very different in children, and so we don't do our homework, because
Right.
we really want to see what we want to see. I
Yes.
like how you have the next one, money problems.
Right.
That's a huge thing that comes up in a
Yeah.
lot of marriages, healthy marriages and unhealthy marriages, money problems.
Yes.
It comes up, and that's a conversation that, is constantly, is going to be a constant in people's
Yes.
marriages. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that way about money because I think that's a constant and that is going to come up. It's not like a one and done conversation you have in the beginning. We're like, oh yeah, you like to make money. I like to make money. We're going to save money. We're going to buy a house. Okay. Because now, like you say, if children come into the mix, how are we going to spend the money now? Because people come from different backgrounds, different ideologies on how you should spend money on children or towards their future or those type of things. Or you might have one person who likes to shop, likes to spend, wants to travel. And the other person is like, no, we need to save. Like, so, so money practice, like, do you see that is one of the major issues?
It's not one of the major issues that I've seen, but I know that it comes up, in the sense of just how to communicate, because, one of the things that we do talk about is what are people's relationship with money? Because like you were saying, we can all have different relationships with it, in the sense of one could be a saver versus one could be a spender,
Right.
Or people can say, well, I'm making six figures, but we're living paycheck to paycheck.
Yes. Yes.
Because we don't know how to save, or, I have one couple where, the husband is the breadwinner and he makes all the money. And so there was this unwritten rule that he pays for all the household expenses, but then he got hurt on the job. And now not bringing as much money as he was. And then all of a sudden it's like, now the wife who has been working is like, wait a minute, we didn't agree to this, I didn't agree to pay half. So there's all of those elements that come into play, because people know, living in California, you damn near have to have two jobs and a hustle to live,
Tell me about it.
And so realizing, having that conversation in relationships is always, a topic of discussions for couples, and how they navigate, because even going through the pandemic, people were losing their jobs, unfortunately, like left and right, and how that was impacting marriages, and some people are still looking for jobs,
No, that's very true.
We don't talk about that, because you may have met that person employed, benefits, and was the bomb.com, and all of a sudden it's like, now you get to see how they are unemployed.
That's true. That's true. And that might be 6 years in. You haven't seen them. You have not seen them when they don't have money. And maybe now they're depressed. So that's another thing. You haven't dealt with depression and you haven't seen someone, this loved one, this way, because they've always been on top. So now they're on the bottom and they're not responding to you the same way. They're reactionary. That brings up a lot. I wanted to also flip it and say that sometimes on the other end about money is that sometimes it's the reason why people stay because of money. Maybe they are the stay-at-home parent or mom or whatever. And so they don't have money to leave, or or a person doesn't have enough to leave. or they can't, or both people can't go their separate ways. And like you say, we live in California, or people who live in New York or Florida, really expensive places.
Yeah.
They know, because there's the ongoing joke that some people are together because the rent is so high.
Oh yeah, there are some people I know now who are separated, like legally separated, and living in the same house because they cannot afford to live anywhere else.
Right.
And so that's a reality for a lot of people.
Exactly.
And so there's people who know that they need to separate, they need to end their marriage, but because of the finances, it's like it benefits us both if we stay married.
Right.
Legally, I'll say that legally.
Okay. Right. For the children, is it ever a good idea? Because we just mentioned about money, staying because of money, that you don't have the finances to leave. Okay, so now we have a relationship where there's children involved. And, if you didn't, I know for me, my mom, first she was a single mom, and then she married while, I was a teenager. Okay. And then my grandparents had that family structure, but of course it wasn't in my primary home. So I always was like, we always want the lovely idea. It's going to be me, myself, my husband, my kids. So people want that. And I get it. And I think for the longest that was pushed, but but even if it wasn't an ideal situation, because it was like, needs to be two parents in the house. But now I'm hearing more, that's not a great idea. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting, and I think I said this in the last segment, that you would see a lot of divorces after children graduated from high school.
Yeah, you said that.
Because they wanted to have this family for their children. And when their children left, and it's like, okay, well, there's no point anymore.
Yeah.
But what I tell a lot of people this is, when you get married, there are two roles that you have children. There's two roles that you have. There is the spouses, and then there's the parents. And just because the spouses no longer, is working, doesn't necessarily mean that the parents can't work.
True.
And I think sometimes people feel like, if I can't be a spouse, that I don't want to be a parent, and vice versa, right? And so realizing you are still a family, but it just looks different. So to stay together for the children's sake, you also have to realize that, is me staying together with my spouse, is this healthy for my children?
Right.
Is this a healthy display, for my children to see?
Yes.
Because I would rather my child to see me in a healthy relationship with their parent than us fighting all of the time.
Right. And now we're modeling a relationship for them. They're watching us, because it's not what our parents say, like, oh, be happy, have a good relationship. It's what we see them do, how we see them being treated, how we see them treating the other person. And what's the saying? I'd rather come from a broken home than be in a broken home, where people are not getting along, where there is a lot of fussing and there is a lot of fighting, because that's where we learn our relationships.
Yeah, we're teaching our children how to be in relationships.
Yes.
Because this is the question that I ask, all couples, is, how was it modeled? How was relationships modeled in front of you?
Right.
And so if we're staying together because we want to keep this image of being a family for our children, it's like, you're still a family. It just looks different.
Yes. I think it's because we're really stuck on the nuclear family. I get it, like, where there is, the two parents, and then there is the, the children, and family can look a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then another thing you said that was good. You said that some people, when they leave the relationship, and they might leave being skirt their responsibilities as a parent because they got to deal with the spouse. And I think that is very hard. I didn't think about that. That's very hard for some people, because you still feel like there's still so much unresolved issues that happen in that marriage, that relationship. That was why you dissolved it and you're gone. But now you got to still keep seeing the person.
And the thing is, what I tell people is whatever issues you didn't resolve, albeit communication and how you interact with each other, the residue is going to show up in the parenting role. So if you had a very poor and toxic communication in being a spouse, it's going to show up, right?
Yes.
It doesn't just disappear because we're divorced.
Yes, right.
It has to move
Good.
somewhere,
That's
right?
good.
And so understanding that, when I said communication is like one of those pillars, is very important to have. And so it's to resolve that. And a lot of times, because I've done some court order parenting, and a lot of the times is I'm resolving the relationship.
Oh, wow.
People are coming to me for parenting stuff because they were court order, but I'm really resolving what happened in the relationship.
I can see that now, right? Because I've seen online where people will share like a text message thread and it starts off, "Can I pick up Johnny on Saturday?" And the rest of it is like all about their stuff, this other stuff. And at the end, you like, well, is he picking up Johnny on Saturday?
Like, where did Johnny go? Right.
Right. Yeah. Right. And kids get lost in the mix of that,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's really hard.
Absolutely. Because realizing too, the child relies on the two adults in the house to keep them safe and to keep them, they set the boundaries, they set the foundation, they set that protective factor.
Yes.
And like you said, when you were talking going through a text thread, children can get so lost in the mix of everything, because I've asked parents, it's like, have you talked to your kids about what's going on? They're like, no, like,
no.
And they don't. And it's like life is happening so quick, and these kids are like, what do I need to do?
Right.
And also too is like, I don't know if I ever told you, but like I, it was this years ago, and I had these parents fighting over their children. And they were like pinning the children against the other parent. And I remember bringing both parents in, because I was just so sick and tired of them fighting and hearing their kids. And because I was a therapist of the children.
Oh, okay.
And I remember telling the parent, I said, what I want you guys to do today, pick your favorite child and take them home. They looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, no, whichever is your favorite child, because there's two of them, pick your favorite child and take that child home. And they said, we would never do that. And I said, well, why would you do that to them? Because that's what you're doing. Pick your favorite parent.
Yeah.
And love your favorite parent.
Right.
And hate the other one.
Wow.
And after that, I guarantee you, Janie, after that, the whole relationship between those two parents changed.
Wow, their
because
perspective.
They saw how they were treating their children.
Yes, right. They had to like step out of their selfishness or out of yourself or your ego or whatever is going on.
And sometimes you got to see it from the child's perspective.
You do. See things so
the world looks very different from the adult
very
side.
different. And we're no longer children, so we forget that. So yeah, we have to like go back and think about that. But what about when you're in a relationship and there are like maybe emotional abuse going on or different type of things that are it's not healthy and it is abusive and we just really don't know. We just think we're just dealing with regular petty stuff or life stuff.
And also too, understanding that, back in the day before abuse was really defined, it was like, well, if I don't see it, it's not abusive. Like I could see a black eye, I could see a broken arm, right? But I don't see, the emotional abuse or the psychological abuse.
Okay.
Sometimes, we don't see the impact. Now there's this thing called gaslighting, when people are very manipulative, in their behavior, very controlling, and it could be as subtle as I don't like you wearing that. Right.
No, very
true.
true.
Change your hair, or why are you walking out wearing that? Like little stuff like that.
Right. Okay.
And also too, it's like anytime you don't feel good enough or worthy enough in your relationship.
Okay.
When your self-esteem is being impacted, your mental health is being impacted.
Okay.
Those are some things that we don't really think about.
Right.
Because they'll be thinking, oh, that's so cute that he cares about me or she cares about me. It's like,
Yes. They're
no, that's
jealous when I go
yeah,
out.
it's like,
Right.
no, that's not healthy.
Yes.
That's
Mm-hmm.
not cute. Because that's speaking about their character and how they don't have a good self-esteem about themselves. So guess what? They're gonna, reflect it onto you,
Right.
or project it onto you, and so if anybody that makes you feel inadequate or
Hmm.
worthless, then you have to question, it's like, is this person bringing the best out of you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's good. Is this person bringing the best out of me?
Yeah.
Because you can like feel that someone is a great person, but they may not make you feel good about yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I may think that they're really, handsome or sweet or responsible or, good to the children. But
Hmm.
like you said, there's subtle things that are happening, but I don't feel good or I feel anxious. I don't
Yeah.
feel worthy. I don't feel quite enough. And sometimes that's like an invitation for us. Like we try harder. So we're
Yeah.
thinking because I used to think because I felt that way, that meant I wasn't doing enough. So like you're always trying to do more or be greater, but you're never like reaching that. You're never getting
Yeah.
that. And you're not getting like good positive feedback from your
You're not
partner
getting
either.
validated for the work that you're doing, or the work, your worth, because
Right.
you want to feel validated, in your
Yes.
relationship. You want to feel
Right.
good, and, to have those times when it's like the only time you speak to me or even say anything about me is something negative and nothing
Mm.
positive, then
Hmm.
there's something wrong with that.
Right. Or only
Mhm.
being touched when the person wants to be intimate or for sex or something like that. I've meant to start off by saying I brought this up because in a conversation I had with a friend, it was very upset because there is a divorce in their family.
Okay.
And in the family, the spouse, the two spouses are splitting. And the person said, who's not in the divorce, just a relative, said there was no infidelity, no infidelity, no cheating, no abuse. He wasn't beating her up, and name something else, or like saying he's not withholding money. So why is she leaving? Why are they
Mhm.
ending? And I said there's multiple and many reasons why a relationship wouldn't work. And so I like what you just said. Like sometimes it's not what we can see. And I always
Mhm.
think, well, the bar's pretty low if that's like your measurement of how well the relationship is
Mhm.
going.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like if we have to wait to get cheated upon or be abused or physically abused to get out of a relationship, then
Yes.
it's like, then I'm going to suffer in silence in a marriage that I don't
Mm,
feel loved or I don't feel validated. You
right.
know,
Right.
I feel or don't feel like we're equal partners, you
Yes.
know, because again, remember we talked in the beginning about lonely versus alone, that
Yes.
there's this me feeling alone in my marriage,
Right.
you know, and wanting to have that companion. But if my companion, yeah, he or she may be physically there, but not
Yes.
emotionally attuned to
Mhm.
who I am and what we're doing or try to build, then it's very
Right.
hard to maintain that,
Hmm.
just because you wanted to look in the good eyes of everybody else, right?
Right. No, really, because I think that is a big issue. Waiting until things are like really bad, where
Yeah.
it's, like you're really in a crisis and you really can't even hardly function now, for us to say, okay, now I'm going to leave, or now I'm really going to do something about it, or now let's go seek help. And I
Yeah.
wonder, like, why do we stay? Why do we stay? Or rather when someone feels stuck and they don't know what to do, like it's obviously this is horrible, the relationship, and but I don't want to make the decision to leave.
Well, there's various reasons, um, I've heard, from I really want my marriage to work. I really, really want my marriage to work, regardless if it's like the house is falling apart around us. I
Yeah.
really want my marriage to work. I've heard people say, I'm, you say, talk about the children. I'm staying in because I want to have this family. So a lot of people have their reasonings, and, people say, because I love that person, is a big thing, because I'm staying because I love that person.
Yes.
But also too, is definitely helping them to understand is your partner willing to work just as hard with you to build the relationship back up? Because yes, you may want the relationship to work and that other person may not. Then what happens?
Right.
Because then you're working really hard for a relationship and the other partner is not there.
Yes, because one person can be saying, I love this person. We're both saying, I love you. And they're saying, yes, we want this marriage to work. And one person is putting in a lot of work and the other person isn't. But we're still saying, I want this marriage to work. What are we really wanting to work? Because we work the marriage. So it's like, what is it that, I don't know what I'm asking.
Well, and I think I do, because a lot of people say this person has this potential. I can see the potential. I know that, they can, once they get their stuff together, then we will have this beautiful marriage. But realizing, like as a therapist, what I tell my clients is, I'm not going to work harder than you.
Come on now.
Right. And then my marriage is, I'm going to work hard, but I can't work hard for two. Marriage is built for two. Yeah. If I'm working harder than two, then guess what? I'm going to burn out. I'm going to get exhausted. I'm going to get resentful. I'm going to get angry. And I'm going to wonder why are you not showing up? For the marriage? And so it's that going back to working together, being in partnership. And so it's like doing a school project. It's like, if we're doing a school project and I'm doing all the work, we get the credit. I'm like, wait a minute, but I did the work. But it's difficult. It's a challenge, But after a while, sometimes people recognize the reality of it, but they still have that expectation that it's going to work out. Like, I really want them to get their stuff together.
Right. Because you can really want the marriage to work and all those things, like you said, are happening. And it's like you have to stop and say, well, what's the reality? What's the truth about the situation? And do you think that that's like the gap there? The reality of what's really going on, and just like you're so focused on this has this potential, you don't want to let go of this has this potential to do this, because a light bulb is going to go off and this thing is about to start. This is about to be lit. No.
And sometimes, like I said, like when I ask couples, is what is your willingness to figure out your relationship?
Yes.
I've asked couples, do you want your marriage to work? And what are you willing to do to put in the work?
Yes.
Because wanting it to work and putting in the work are two different things.
Right.
Because they think, because a lot of times the question is like, why do I have to change? And it's like, well, you're the one sitting on the couch. You got to do the work, because a lot of times I will talk to one spouse, but the other spouse is not in the room. They're not in the therapy, because the other person's like, well, I don't want to do therapy. I don't want to do therapy. And it's like, well, this is a tale of of the marriage. Now, if that person is willing to do the work with you outside of therapy, that's great.
Right.
But the key word is working on the marriage.
Right.
You have to be willing and wanting to work on the marriage. Just because you're saying, I want to stay married, there's a lot of people that want to stay married, but are you willing to work on the marriage?
Right. That's a whole different conversation.
Absolutely.
Because your words could be saying that, but your actions are saying otherwise. So
I may want to be a millionaire, but if I'm not working and I'm unemployed playing video games all day.
And that's good. Are people, do you think people are like, that they're really honest with themselves, like what they really want? My spouse is going to get it together and then that's going to turn everything around, or the money's gonna, but that hasn't been the pattern at all. Like,
and that's my thing is I said as many times as I've, you know, I've bought used cars, they've never turned into a new car.
No, no.
Usually it's buy as is. So
Yes.
however that person shows up to you before getting married, just assume that that's how they're going to be in marriage, unless they're wanting to change. Not saying that there's no room and space to change.
Right.
And yes, you know, there's people always working on themselves constantly, but looking at the reality of like, how is this person showing up now?
Yes, that's true.
Because to me, it's like we also have to be honest with ourselves in who we choose and who we are as a person.
Yes.
You know,
the part
because
we play.
Say it again.
The part that we play in all of it.
Absolutely. Because we can ignore some red flags. I don't care how big if they will wave in our face. We will ignore it because it's like he has potential and he sold this and she sold that. It's like, but what was the red flags that you chose to ignore?
No, really, because the red flags can be glaring and flagging and waving, and we're looking at this little green flag in the corner that's just going like this, which is the potential.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to look at, your potential versus your priority. What is your priorities?
Okay.
What are your standards? What are your values? Because if you list all of your values and your standards and your priorities and you measure it up towards that other person, right? But because that person, but he has so much or she has so much, it's like, but looking at what you have right now, do they measure up?
That's a good exercise.
Yeah.
So if someone's watching and you're in that situation, like you said, priorities and potential, and they really want something to work, but there's like a whole history of like these things that aren't working that are very serious. If you make a list.
So your priorities, your standards, your values, like your deal breakers. What are your deal breakers?
Should you have a deal breaker?
Absolutely.
Okay. Should you have boundaries?
Absolutely.
And you have those even in healthy relationships, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I tell my clients every single time I see them, the boundaries are for you. The boundary is not for the other person.
Okay.
The boundaries are for you because you get to invite people into your space or not.
That's true.
Right? And so, yes, you should have boundaries. You should have standards. You should have priorities in your life. Yes, people can have preferences. We're going to all have preferences. But understanding this, you are your best prize.
That's right.
You are your best jewel. Right? Never have you gone into a Tiffany store and says, I want to buy this very expensive, this expensive jewel of $10,000, but I only have $100. Never discount yourself. Never discount yourself for nobody who can't afford you, right?
Right. And when you, and I don't want to even sound cliche-ish, but when you value yourself and you move like that and you believe it in here and you're not like fronting, to honor and respect that. Otherwise, like you said, I have a deal breaker. Yeah. I have a boundaries. Like you said, walking in Tiffany's and they're like, and you walk up to that $1 million bracelet or whatever with your $500 or your $5. And they're like, you're not getting this. Because you
let me show you what you can afford. Right? It's not this. But let me show you what you can afford, right? So yes, you have to value yourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's what hurts a lot of people because, I talk to a lot of single people. And it's like, but I've been single for so long. And it's like, but you should never have to discount or lower your value.
Never.
Exactly. Just because you want to be in a relationship. And that's the loneliness that we talked about.
That is. And because we think it's taking a long time. But my thing is, you have to be patient because would you rather just settle on what you don't deserve of settling and not getting what you deserve, what you want or what you need? Or were you willing to wait for the right thing, the right person, right time, or the right circumstance? And it's like when we go to school, it takes time to get your degree, or when you even in your career to work your way up the ladder, I think we kind of rush because like you said, loneliness And sometimes we're like just really desperate for that love. I think you're about to say something.
Because what I tell people is what I've heard this saying is like, you don't want to meet the right person at the wrong time, and you don't want to meet the wrong person at the right time. So while you are waiting, add value to yourself.
Yes.
Figuring out the things that you love about yourself and add value, because that means you're going to add more value to that relationship.
Oh, very good.
We have seasons of that, regardless if you're married or if you're single.
Okay.
But it's figuring out, like really digging, like, what is that? What is it that I'm, lonely? What am I craving? What is my spirit or my soul craving? And they're saying, I want companionship. Okay. How often are you hanging out with your tribe, your people, right? And some people's like, well, I want that opposite sex, or I want that intimacy. I want that. And it's like, okay, but are you going out meeting people?
That's right.
But in a marriage, it's like, if you're missing your partner, are you connecting to your partner?
Okay.
Does your partner know that you're lonely?
Right. Right. Have you said that? Because they might be looking over there, seeing you eating your popcorn, watching a movie, like everything all good. They'll know. I want to talk a little bit about happiness. I put is happiness important to the well-being of a marriage? I know, like in your life period. I see some things sometimes because I'm always reading in the comments and then people are saying that's y'all problem. Everybody want to be happy. And I'm like, I think life is going to throw at you all kind of loops that's going to remove your happiness, right? So I always feel like, so if you can be happy or find happiness or generate happiness, then that's what you should go for. I believe that we do experience all of our emotions. Sometimes I am sad and all the other stuff. I learned to move through those things. However, I do try to work on the happiness. Is happiness important in relationships?
I just recently heard this saying, a happy spouse makes a happy house.
I like it. I like that way instead of the old way. Yeah, that's a good one.
I really like that because, we both individually have to be happy.
Okay.
But I also have to recognize that my partner has to be happy as well.
Okay.
And if we're both happy, guess what? Both of our well-being is going to be healthy. And happy. Is happiness going to happen all the time? No, because life happens.
Yes.
But there should be other elements to realize that I see you, you see me, and we're trying to get through this together. And that, yes, happiness can be a goal, but so should healthiness. I want healthiness to be a goal.
Healthiness. I like that. Because I think, I'm sure you get a lot of people who do come to you and they're not happy. Can you be unhappy and still be in a healthy relationship?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, that means like that's telling, your spouse, it's like, I love you, but I'm not happy with where we're at right now.
Do you have anything else that you wanted to add to this discussion?
Well, this was some really good discussion. This is definitely, again, like I said, I love marriage. I love when people are wanting to work on their marriage. I love having these discussions about marriage, because people are still getting married. I hear a lot of people like, are people not getting married? It's like, people are still getting married, but they also have to realize it's work.
Yes.
It's a lot of work and you have to be willing to do the work.
Yes, I like that.
I truly thank you for inviting me on your show again.
Yes, I will have you back, and so I'll connect with you. It was a meaningful conversation. It was insightful, and it was really great. Thank you, and you have a good day.
All right, have a good one. Thank you.
You too. And that's it for today's show. I hope you all enjoyed it and that you got something out of the show. And remember that if you are in a situation that you are suffering from any type of abuse is never okay. Your safety is what is paramount and what is the priority. Remember, no abuse is ever okay. We want everyone to be safe. Again, thank you for joining the show. I'm so glad that Carmel was able to join us. She is with Heaven Sent Consultation. I will definitely put up her website. Please comment, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And thank you for joining the Janie B Perspective. Until next time, goodbye. Janie B Show.